Hey guys, it's Brenda back with episode 4. I'm really excited about this episode. I've got an amazing guest. Um, she's an advocate. I'm not going to talk too much about her experience. I did want to say, again, I don't edit anything. I want this podcast to be as real and as raw as it can be. So there won't be anything taken out. Whatever we say is what we say. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bowie.
Hello, thank you, Brenda. I know we've got some amazing people out there listening in right now. Um, a little bit about me, just so you know where I'm coming from on all of this. I am a parent of a special needs child, as well as I'm sure undiagnosed at some point myself, struggled through school, so I guess my heart's in a little different place. I was a teacher, I was an educator for 42 years. I have retired 1 year ago, and now I have my own advocacy company. And my cup filler is honestly being able to help families navigate the education system and to get the schools and the families to work well together. It's not about acquiring a specific document per se. It's about making sure that a child gets what they need to show us everything they can on how they can learn and communicate. So I really work diligently with all of my families and kids so that we can make sure that everything that is necessary for them to be successful, to be contributing members of society in some way, is accomplished. So that's my whole impetus for doing this is I want families to work together as much as possible with the education system, but to have an understanding of it because as you and I know, Brenda, education is a different language.
Yes,
So
for
I
sure.
definitely welcome the opportunity to talk on your podcast about what we can do for the kids as families and educators.
I'm super excited about this because I feel like um, there are so many parents that I've met. Obviously, when you get the diagnosis and you come into a community, you meet a lot of people, and I feel like the IEP world is something that is grossly misunderstood. I think when you're going through the diagnosis and all of that, everything is thrown at you at once. And I was actually fortunate enough that we had done early steps with my daughter before she was age 3. So we came right into the school with an IEP. Early steps had helped us set all that up. But there are a lot of families out there that don't know how to do that. They don't know what an IEP is. They don't know, a lot of the kids, if they're not like on the severe end, they don't, sometimes they go missed, and they kind of float through the system just really not thriving because they're not given the services because somewhere along the way they've slipped through the cracks. Um, I think it's a lot to digest when they try to explain it. I know when you and I were talking earlier, we talked about the procedural safeguards that they present at the beginning of every meeting, and how many parents probably say no, that's okay. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
what is your advice in that moment? Like a parent that's brand new, just got a diagnosis, they're just sitting at an IEP table. Well, let's talk about this first. What is an IEP and who qualifies?
Okay. So an IEP is an individualized education plan, and it is truly supposed to be specific for each individual child. And the qualifications for an IEP, there are 13 different categories under the federal categorical for students with disabilities. So each disability class has different qualifications. I think the biggest disparity that we face right now as an education society is that there are medical diagnoses of different things such as autism spectrum disorder, oppositional defiance, obsessive compulsive, whatever. There are medical diagnoses of these. The hard thing is, and I'm going to go ahead and use autism just because that's the one that I feel I end up in the most meetings for, and especially with our younger kids, is that when you're looking at autism and a pediatrician diagnoses a child with autism, that doesn't mean they automatically qualify for an IEP. A medical diagnosis is different than an educational. Now, do school systems actually diagnose autism? No, absolutely not.
Right.
What they're speaking of is a child being determined eligible for services under the program of autism spectrum. So it's those particulars about the language. The problem is, and I shouldn't say problem, the challenge is a lot of kids will go through early intervention or go through Fiddlers, which is the Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resource Services, and they have centers throughout the state of Florida in the Alachua, Marion, Dixie, Gilchrist, Levy. Those counties in Florida all fall under Fiddler Springs. While they have a pre-K eval team. Here's the issue. For a family to bring a child as young as the age of 3 to an evaluation is absolutely empowering. It is also very, in a way, scary because you're still learning about this child.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're yours, but we don't know. We just know something's different or
Right.
something's not, or even the pediatrician might have made a comment about a developmental milestone. So you as the parents are first of all dealing with a potential, wait a minute, is there something quote unquote wrong with my kid? No, there's nothing wrong with your kid.
Right.
It's just we need to figure out as educators, how are we going to meet that child's needs? And if we can get them as early as 3, and if they are eligible for an IEP, having gone through the evaluation process, fantastic. Then we can get them into school and we can start working on it. The issue really comes down to knowing where to go, right? Because it is free to go to Fillers. You don't have to pay for an evaluation. When you do a truly comprehensive early intervention situation, what we're looking at is we have an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a speech language pathologist, a social worker that will get the history from the family about the birth. How's everything been going? Looking at milestones. There's even a school psychologist that'll be involved. And
Right.
you have all of these people are there just for your child. And they're taking down information about how does your child do in specific areas compared to a typically developing child of the same age, same gender.
Right.
Okay? So just because a child needs an IEP or is determined eligible because they qualified doesn't mean by any shake of it that they're not able to learn. That is that's old school.
Right.
That's
Now,
that's old school.
I do want to say, like, for me, and I didn't struggle with it as bad as probably some parents, but whenever the developmental delays started being pointed out at almost age 2, um, it was hard for me to come to the acceptance. Now, I say hard. I spent a couple weeks struggling with it. And then, of course, I came to terms with, okay, if this is what it is, this is what we have to do. But do you have any advice for parents that might be struggling with that, to like maybe something that you would say to them to quickly find the acceptance and then do what is necessary to proceed forward? Because there is still that stigma, right? Like, oh, they have an
There is.
IEP,
Yeah.
but like, or maybe even like some success that you've seen because they got the early intervention, that they didn't need necessarily the help lifelong, or even into, like, because an IEP can be dismissed, right? Like if they determine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I am so glad you asked that question because we have to look at the original intent of what an IEP is, and that is to get the child the assistance they need as young as possible in the hope that they won't need that document anymore.
Right.
The sooner we can come in and help, the sooner that child gets what they need to be successful, the less likely they're going to need to have an IEP throughout their school. I have so many kids over my 42 years that I have worked so hard to get that IEP off of them. Now, when I say that, it sounds like we're taking something away, but we're not. What that means is the student, the child, has been able to close those gaps and learn
Right.
what they need to do to learn, right? It's almost like they take more ownership of their own education without even knowing it. Because inherently, I think the big question you asked there is, how do we help parents of young children cope with hearing something like this?
Right.
And honestly, I would have to say that kudos to you parents that actually seek answers because you notice something's different or someone has mentioned it to you. Yes, absolutely. It is, and it's okay, and it's perfectly natural to feel a sense of loss.
Right.
It's it's natural, but we've got to remember they are all children first, disability potential second.
Right.
The IEP does not define them. Who they are as a person does.
Right.
So we've got to remember that a 2 or 3 year old boy or girl is a 2 or 3 year old boy or girl first. And then if there's some other stuff going on, let's address it together.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we need to do together. And the parents are so important in this process. I cannot stress that enough.
Right.
The parents have to they have to be active in their child's life on all areas, not just at home, but also in working with the school.
Right. Yeah.
So my advice is that's your child. Love them as your child first, and we can work on all this other stuff.
Right. Yeah. And I think for me, I came to like where I was at the crossroads, and it was like, I don't want this to be the reality, but this is the reality, and this is what we're facing. And then just picturing her walking through the schools struggling, and
Yeah.
walking through life struggling, and knowing that I could have done something early, um, was, I think, the biggest thing. Like, I didn't want to, I think part of me blamed myself, part of me, like, what was I not doing? What was I missing? And then, the other part of me, like, was just like picturing her at, now she's 14, picturing her without all of those supports. Um, and obviously, my situation's a little bit more on the extreme side. Ruby being level 3 autistic, there's a lot more that she needs on her IEP than maybe the average, or other people. Maybe they don't need
Right.
all of those things. For Ruby, she needs the constant supervision, and she's, now she's epileptic, so she needs seizure meds. So all of those things are all encompassing, but at the very beginning it wasn't like that, and there wasn't all those extra things. And but I just didn't want to see her struggle, and I wanted her to see what I wanted her to have, what her rights, like what she was
Right.
entitled to, the services. Because at that point it was like, okay, let's try everything and see what is going to work for her. And like, obviously she's not talking, we need speech. And obviously,
Right.
like, she had some gross motor stuff going on, so we need OT. And, she wasn't even able to step up on a curb
Oh
without
yeah.
losing her balance at the very beginning. So we did some PT at school. But I just couldn't see her, especially after I learned what her rights were and all of those things, making sure that she had those and showing up for her. Um,
Right. Right. Well,
because,
and I think that that's a very valid point, and being there for her. You also, I want the parents to fully understand that everything for an IEP is a committee decision. It is not based on one person's opinion. Not one person has power over another person in an IEP meeting. Everybody in that meeting is there for that child and wants what's best for that child. The parent being an active member of that committee is imperative. And parents, don't apologize during IEP meetings. You have nothing to apologize for, and it's natural. It is extremely natural for a parent to go, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. Don't apologize for getting emotional. My goodness, it's your child.
yeah, and it's hard.
You need to.
What I don't know about any other parent. I can only speak for myself. So every day I always look at the things that Ruby can do. So like she
Right.
can do this and she is very loving and all of these things. So when you're sitting in that meeting, and I don't think it was until really fourth grade that, and again, she's really severe. So those things are really hard to hear that your kid can't do. And when you know that there's, you have friends that are kids that are the same age, like I have friends that were pregnant with me. So I know their
Yeah.
kids are doing all those things, and it's so hard to listen to what they can't do. And those are things I don't focus on. I don't
Right.
dwell on those things every day. And it wasn't until about fourth grade when the IEPs started to change and, oh, she's making progress here and she's progressing here, that I left not crying. I think I even made a
Okay.
Facebook
Yeah.
post about it. Like it is really hard. And
Yeah.
especially when you know that you're pulling from all the avenues, like, Ruby had private speech therapy. And even to this day, I still question if I missed something.
Right.
Her
Right.
being where she is right now, it's like, did I miss something? Was there a stone I didn't turn over? So it's an ongoing emotional thing. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely apologized in meetings for crying. It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
hear and it's hard not to get sad. But you're right. I shouldn't have been sorry for getting emotional. And I've had meetings where there wasn't a dry eye in there. What
Right.
the way
Right.
that I'm pouring it all out, and I'm looking around and there's other people crying with me. So you're right. Like they're all in there with you, for you, and for your
Yeah.
child, and they feel it too. You know.
Right. Right. Well, and don't ever feel when you're in an IEP meeting that you're talking too much. That's not possible. You are speaking about your child,
Mhm.
okay? So don't ever feel that. Make the assumption, and I tell this to even the students that I teach law, and I tell this to my students every term. Every time you speak to somebody, act like they have no idea what you're talking about, and it's your job to give them the information. Don't make an assumption that somebody already knows something about your child and you don't want to go back over it. No, go over it. They may not know that your child needs help going poop, okay,
Yeah.
and that you guys take care of that every third day, because you know what, by the end of the second day, having not gone, they could be pretty darn irritable. You
Right.
know what, that's very good information for the teacher, right?
Right.
So don't ever assume that what you have to say is not relevant. Everything that you choose to share about your child is empowering to everybody that works with your child.
And I think that's funny you say that, because we had one meeting that they were telling me that Ruby couldn't do something, and I know she did it at home. And another thing about Ruby is she's very smart when it comes to manipulation. She showed them she couldn't do it, So she thought because they didn't know that she didn't have to do it there. And I made them bring her to me. And I told her in front of them, you do that at home. You need to stop showing them that you can't do it here. That is not acceptable. And they now know. And so you're going to do it. And I got a note that she started doing it. So
Yep.
sometimes even the collaboration, like sometimes there is a true disconnect between home and school.
Yeah.
They separate it.
Yeah.
But there are skills that they could be showing you at home or vice versa.
Yes.
Doing it at school but not doing it at home, and bridging that gap for the kids is so important. And if you're not talking about those things, and it was something so mundane, like I think it was like
Right.
throwing her trash away or something like that. And the teacher was like, no, we like, she doesn't ever do that here. She's not demonstrating that. And it was just so frustrating because I was like, she can do it. And so I made them bring her to me. But it's little things like that when you're communicating with the teacher, uh, they don't always know because they don't always see it.
No.
And
No.
then when you're telling them all of that information, and I'm guilty of it, I feel like I dump it all on them. But at the same time, it saved me so many situations, because I can tell them things like what I know leads up to a seizure and the behaviors that I see,
Right.
so they can be aware of it.
Yeah.
Little quirks about them that maybe they take it, the teacher might think that that's one thing, but it's actually another. I've been able to identify when she's in pain, she grinds her teeth. That means she's hurting. Um,
Oh, there you go.
Little things like that I've told the teachers over the years so that they know this is what that means.
Well,
Um,
that allows that, but see that, Brenda, that allows people to be proactive with your child.
right,
Then we don't have to be on that reactive front. So
right,
the more information and I think the other thing that really, not every educator is well versed, is the fact that just because a child is nonverbal, it doesn't mean they lack the desire to communicate, nor that they can't communicate
right,
or are unable to communicate. Kids communicate regardless of verbal ability.
right.
Okay. When we see these kids having major meltdowns, we have to sit back and say, all right, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we seeing all behavior is a form of communication? Some
Yes,
way or another. Some way or another. That's why I gotta tell you, when you start to look at it with a different lens towards the kids freaking out, what did we miss? And
right,
then you start looking, the kid might have their shoes on the wrong feet,
right,
right? It could be anything. But when you give the information like you just said, that she's grinding her teeth when she's in pain, God, that is so impactful for anybody working with her to know that,
right,
because we know, and because we also have to acknowledge the fact that regardless if you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, we have to acknowledge the fact that when the body is in pain, it is trying to protect itself for you to stop,
right,
right? If I'm in pain, that means, I better stop this. For kids that are on the spectrum, especially a level 3, especially for some of our kids that are nonverbal, they don't know to stop.
right,
That pain, we have to tell them, come here, what, and then we go through the 1 million questions trying to figure out what's wrong, but at least we can stop them
right,
and try to figure it out when we know that that's the antecedent to the behavior.
right. Yeah. And on the topic of like communication, I know for a while I was struggling with when they wanted to switch to PECs because
Uh-huh.
you know, I was like, no, I want the focus to be on words. I want the focus to be on words. Like I want her to verbally say, and it took a while before I finally took a step back and was like, if that's going to be a way that my child that just doesn't have words right now can tell
Yeah.
me anything, even the
Right.
device, the ACC device, I was like, oh, this is like, if she has this, this was my mindset, back when I was a younger mom. If she has
Yep.
this, why is she going to talk? Because she has this. But then I
Yeah.
realized, oh, well, if she has this, I can get something out of her. It
Yeah.
might, be even just in the most emergency situations where she's screaming in pain. It's like, okay, what body part hurts?
Yep.
Show me.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those are the most empowering moments for that child too, because they're in so much pain and they just want to tell you, and there you go. Now you have
Yeah.
that the beginning of those skills, and it might not look like what you hope, but shifting your vision of it for them is so important. And but it's hard. It is. It's all of it's hard. Every last
It,
bit of it. um it's difficult.
yeah. Yeah. It's hard because, like you just mentioned, with PECS, which stands for Picture
Oh
Exchange
yeah.
Communication System. It's okay. It's all right. But PECS is, you're assigning meaning to words. You have to realize that a lot of our kids that are not able to communicate don't understand the world in general.
Right.
So when you use universal pictures like through PECS, you're actually assigning meaning to things. Like you could put a cookie on a table, and unless that kid knew that cookie was something good to eat, they'll gonna sit there and look at it.
Right.
But as soon as I pick that cookie up and I go, ooh, this is really good, and then I set that cookie back down, the kid's gonna go, wait a minute, I've got one of those.
Right.
They said that, and then they're gonna pick it up and eat it. Well, guess what? When I put a picture of that cookie on their communication board and I say, would you like a snack? They're probably gonna point to that cookie. And let me tell you something, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you were just speaking of, giving them a voice, not necessarily what we had that we wanted for them as their parent, but what they need to be able to communicate with us to open that door to go even deeper.
Right.
It's a starting point. And I think that's the other thing, Brenda, you got to realize that's a starting point. That's not an ending point.
Right. And it did take me some
So
time to come to terms with that,
it's,
but
yep,
and even at
yep,
14 I haven't completely lost hope. She makes sounds and stuff like that, but
yeah,
it is a good tool and a good skill for her to have. But I was resistant, at first, and I was, it's the way that my mind was thinking of it, and not so selfishly holding on to the words, the vocal
right,
voice. um,
right, right.
but yeah, so um, those are things that parents probably struggle with. I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Oh, you're not alone.
No, like a lot of people, I feel sad when I meet someone and they're like, yeah, they just finally came to terms with it at age 10,
Yeah,
or 12, or, even some people in adulthood that are just now
yeah,
getting a diagnosis. And it's a lot of times it's because the parents didn't want that stigma or didn't want to come to terms with that their child needed additional assistance, and that could have been provided through an IEP. And there's when they're real severe, it's like a 67 or below IQ. But I think a lot of times the harder ones are the ones above that, because they
yeah,
blend. And
yep,
somewhere along the line, someone might have said to that parent, hey, they might need evaluated for this, and then they don't want to do it because they feel like it's a horrible thing, or whatever the reason may be. And for those parents, listen to Dr. Bowie, because the earlier that you can get them help, the better off they are. I know a lot of kids in Ruby's pre-K ESE class. Once they got those skills from just the ESE pre-K, they went on to Gen Ed and
yep,
didn't need those services anymore. And that's beautiful. That's the end
right.
goal that you want for every kid. But if they hadn't had those services at that early of a stage, they might not have gained those skills, because, as psychology knows, age 3 and below, or is it 5? I think it's 5 and below, they're sponges.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
taking
5
in,
and below there.
yeah, that's when they're crucial. So if you can get a diagnosis then or get help then for that child, then you're going to have a better shot at not needing it long term.
And I think the hardest part about that, I'm going to use just from my experience from everything that I've done throughout my career. So, one of the many, many programs that I was over under exceptional student education was the deaf or hard of hearing program. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we were building a new campus in the county I was working in, and I was able to wire everything during construction at a fraction of the cost to have electronic devices use Bluetooth for kids that were deaf or hard of hearing,
Mm-hmm.
so that especially the hard of hearing kids would have amplification. Well, here's the issue. Many, because the deaf culture and deaf community are very, very strong. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great community. So if I got a child at the age of 3 to come to my pre-K DHH unit, and that child came from a family that both parents had hearing, do you know that 80% of deaf children born to hearing parents don't develop any communication until they go to school?
Aww.
The parents don't learn sign language. They come up with different approximations,
Right.
but it's not real sign language. So if you think about it, when babies are born and they hear, we're talking, oh, look at what a beautiful baby. Oh my gosh, look at this. Oh, look at this is a ball. Oh, look, this is a Cheeto. Whatever you're talking about,
Right.
they're hearing language. Think about the deaf baby. People will be told your child is deaf, and people don't talk to them. Well, you know what we don't realize is that when these little people get here, they're watching our facial gestures, they're watching our body language. Well, what if you're not talking to that kid because they're deaf? They don't know how to read somebody's face.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, my point to that story is so many of our kids have unseen disabilities. You can't physically see them. So people insert what they think,
Right.
right? They see a child misbehaving, and you've walked past people in the store. My kid would never do that.
Right.
I wouldn't let him do that. And you're sitting there going, yeah, whatever, just back off, because you know your kid, right?
Right.
So, like I stated already, and I know I'm kind of a broken record on this, the sooner we get your child into whatever they need, which we don't know until we get started, the longer it's going to take them to catch up.
Right.
Is every child going to catch up in their academic pursuits? No,
No.
not every child is. Absolutely not. However, what's our ultimate goal for our own children? Our own children, the goal is for them to go to school, to get an education, to be able to communicate their basic wants and needs. I hurt, I'm hungry, I need to go to the bathroom, whatever.
Right.
We have to give them the opportunity to learn that, to be able to grow from it. If that means we're using a picture exchange communication board, so be it. We'll work that into languages when we can, if we can.
Right.
It's a when if. There's nothing wrong with these kids. There's nothing wrong with them. We just have to learn about them better.
How to accommodate
And
them.
we
Yeah, like how to make
absolutely,
them.
absolutely.
I look at the IEP as what supports are needed to make my child successful. And
Exactly.
it looks different for mine than some. Like I said, Ruby is
Yep.
pretty severe. So hers look a lot different than someone else. But
Yeah.
what does she need in her day-to-day school setting to make her the most successful adult that she could become, to make her the most successful citizen that she could be? And I don't know what that's going to look like for her, but whatever it takes in supports on the school level, that's what her IEP is for. Um,
Well, you want her to be the best version of herself that
right,
she can possibly be.
right,
That's what every parent wants for their child.
right, and
When a child is born without the ability to walk, like every baby does not have the ability to walk
right,
yet, but when they get to that age, if that's something that's not happening, do we not jump in and take care of that right away because it's obvious that the child is not
right,
able to walk?
right,
Well, when that it's not that obvious, it takes a little bit more of a search to figure it out.
right,
So let's get that going as soon as we can
right,
to help everybody out, because you know what? It also helps the entire family. It helps the mom and dad because now you can communicate with your child better.
right. Now, you mentioned the counties here in Florida, but like, what would be the best, like, for instance, in another state or something, wouldn't the pediatrician bring up milestones, and would they have the resources to send? Because obviously, Fiddlers is just here in Central
Right.
Florida. Would the pediatrician have the proper like resources to send them to if they're somewhere else listening, and they see something or notice something is off with their child?
Yeah. Yeah. So my experience is I'm in about 8 different states now, and I'm talking Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Texas. So everything I do is federal. I follow everything federal. Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
I live in the state of Florida, but when you're looking at laws and you're looking at eligibility and qualifications, that's all federal.
so I'm glad
So
you touched on
even,
that. So that means, so
yeah,
federal means everywhere in the United States, right?
correct. Everywhere in the all 50 states, we are all held to the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, IDEA. What we have to do under that is there are eligibility categories and there are criteria that are outlined. Now, your state might word it a little differently, but the criteria doesn't actually change. I hear a lot, oh, well, my county's too small, so we don't do that. Okay. I'm sure somebody said that out loud, which should never come out of people's mouths. If and I'm not familiar. There's only two states that I know of that are very selective on any federal money that they accept, and that's Texas and California.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons that they're selective on the money that they will accept is because they don't want the federal government to dictate what they do for students with special needs. They want to do it on their own. So 95% of all school districts in our country accept federal funding.
Right,
If they don't accept federal funding, they're not functioning. They can't. They don't have enough money.
right,
So they've got to follow that criteria. That's a non-negotiable. They have to look at these kids. Back to your question, yes, you would start with your pediatrician. However, I do caution families. Doctors put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and I. The difference is they went to medical school and got letters after their name that make them, quote unquote, the expert on their child's medical care. It doesn't necessarily mean they understand the psychology or psychiatry of the child.
right,
The developmental can be very different from a pediatrician. If you took your child to a pediatric occupational therapist or a pediatric physical therapist compared to an adult OT or PT, you're going to get very different information
right,
because you're looking at a child differently. I've heard too many times that, well, we've been going to the pediatrician and they've said everything's okay. From a pediatric perspective, the child might check every box. They're healthy, they're eating well, they go potty, looking good, kid. But you as the parent are going, something doesn't seem right.
Right.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
Yep.
Don't stop. If you truly believe that your child, and we all have mom groups today, everybody's in mom groups. My daughter was in mom groups with all three of my grandkids, and they still stay in touch. And regardless, human nature is that you do compare your child to other kids their same age. Of
Mm-hmm.
course we do.
Right.
If you truly believe that there's something a little bit amiss with your child and the pediatrician kind of shrugs you off, then don't stop at the pediatrician.
Right.
Okay?
And
Seek
sometimes
out seek out.
the
Yes.
pediatrician can, they're seeing that part, but you have the school saying, hey, they need these extra supports, but the
Right.
pediatrician doesn't see the academics. The pediatrician
Right.
doesn't see the supports that would be needed for the school. They're only seeing the physical health, the milestones, and stuff like that. So
Yep.
it could even come from a, and if you're blessed enough to have an educator come to you and say, hey, we think that
Yeah.
they need these extra supports, please take it.
Take it.
Yeah, because it's not going to hurt anything, and the teacher is willing to do the work to get them the extra supports, and they see them academically.
Right. If a
They
teacher comes, that's, you know what, Brenda, thank you for bringing that up, because let me tell you something. When a teacher reaches out to a parent and says, hey, you say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, thank you so much. Because you know what? Even though they might have 18 or 20 kids in the class, that's like having 50 to 100 on any given day.
yeah,
And if they've noticed something with your child, that means that they're in the right place and they've got the heart and they've got that teacher lens to say, let's get going on this.
right. And they what you see at home compared to what they see at school. You're only doing so much homework with them at home. They're with them
Yeah.
during the day, sometimes all day. Um,
Yep.
Especially at those younger ages where they have the same teacher all day and all they do is go out for specials. That teacher's with
Right.
them sometimes more than us as the parents.
Oh,
And
isn't that the truth?
yeah, and so when they're noticing that they just need a little extra nudge or an extra amount of assistance, and they're coming to you, I know the natural instinct is to be like, no, that can't be, but honestly, like, take it.
Yeah. It's
It's
hard.
yeah,
We're not saying that's an easy pill to swallow by any means.
no,
And you know what? Also keep in mind, not every child is supposed to do everything at the same exact time academically. Kids' brains mature at different rates. And just because your child might be a little bit slower to catch on to something, it doesn't mean they're unable to.
right,
It just means that maybe their brain hasn't matured to the point to be able to process that information, and they just might need it repeated more frequently. Or they might, maybe they're not ready to learn that yet, but they can learn something else. So when a teacher sees that, they're truly doing that to keep there from being a really big gap in
right,
the child's ability to learn.
yeah, and probably more often than it should be, a lot the parent could be, and I have friends that have done it, and I don't want that label on my kid. I don't want that that
Yeah.
stigma, or I don't want, and it's truly unfortunate because it really is just the extra assistance. Like you said, that's one of actually Ruby's accommodations, is the directions repeated and clarified.
Oh, there you go.
Verbal encouragement, keep going,
Yeah.
you can do this.
Yep.
And
Yep.
sometimes, and those documents follow that kid until they're dismissed. So
Yeah.
even though they have a really great teacher this one year, they might not have it the following year. But if they
Yeah.
have the IEP, those services and those specific accommodations, they keep with them, and they have to be followed.
Well, and remember that the intent of the IEP and the reason it's really important that it get visited every year is because a child should not have to fail for a teacher to figure out what to do. That IEP is an honest to goodness roadmap for anybody in the educational setting that would need to have contact with that child to understand them.
Right.
So, it's, and some of you are going to have kids that are already into the elementary years, and the pre-K stuff doesn't matter. However, in those elementary years, you've got to be really, really on it to make sure that your child is not failing. And when you get shown a graph, if your child has an IEP, and they're saying, look it, he's making progress, and they show this line that's barely on an upward trend. And let's say the student is in third grade. Well, that kid is on a kindergarten level. Whether they're showing progress or not, it doesn't mean they can read on a third grade level.
Right.
It means that they're still learning their phonics. So you've got to be reality based on an IEP and what the child can do independently and what they need help with. And what does that help look like?
Right.
It needs to be clearly spelled out so that no matter who picks up that IEP, they know what to do for your child. That's what it's about. I pick up this packet, I go through it, and I know, oh goodness, during reading, they need to be seated closer to the board, whatever. It doesn't matter what,
Right.
but that's what that IEP is. If you had to pick up and move tomorrow to another state, it doesn't matter. If you've got that IEP, that new school has to follow it.
Right.
You don't have to meet eligibility again. If you move from one county to another with an IEP, they have to follow the IEP. Don't let them tell you, oh, well, that's from another district, we don't follow that. That's not the way the law reads, and that is not the intent. Once they have the document, they have it.
Now, I will touch on that because I do know a friend of mine, they moved, and is it not best practice to have a copy of that IEP and take to the school right away? Like, what is the process of getting it from another district? Is there some type of time lapse?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely hand carry a copy of the IEP to the school. Now, I caution leaving it at the front desk.
Yeah.
I am much more apt to say, set a meeting with the guidance counselor.
Right.
And hand them the IEP so that you can know that it's gotten into the right hands. Right. But that's the quickest way, because what happens is when kids move is they will request all their records from their previous school district, but there is a delay. And by law, kids can't be kept out of school.
Right.
So they're supposed to let the kids start right away. Well, as a parent, you don't want them to start unless the school knows what they need.
Right.
So having that IEP and turning it in when you register that kid to the guidance counselor, yeah, that is absolutely.
Before you would move to another district, you would definitely, if you don't have a copy, get a copy of that, take it with you, give it to guidance, because you would, God forbid that they would miss services or miss something, oftentimes, like, I can only speak from my experience, Ruby has always been in a self-contained unit. I would never want her to not be put in her self-contained unit because they don't know that, because they don't have that document.
So I have experienced exactly what you're talking about as a district administrator, where kids have come in, we receive nothing. The parent never even mentions that their kid had an IEP, and all of a sudden the poor kid is just flailing, like they can't function because they are not in the right setting. Right. And had we known that information and before they showed up, right, they would have had a much easier transition.
Right. Yeah. So making sure that you take that copy with you is going to be important.
It is.
So at the beginning of an IEP, they do the, do you want to hear your procedural safeguards? And because everyone that's listening to the podcast is going to listen to Dr. Bowie, because she's got so many years of experience, they're going to say, yes. What are some of those things that they're going to go over? What is a procedural safeguard? We'll start there.
Okay. So the procedural safeguards for an IEP are typically like 30 pages long, and nobody wants to read all that.
Right.
So what does the procedural safeguard actually say in it? Number one, realize it's a legal document. So it's got a lot of legalese in it, right? Because
Right.
that's how they kind of keep you on edge. And basically, what the procedural safeguards tell you as a parent of a student, either with a suspected disability or a disability, is that you have rights as a parent. If you disagree with the school system and their evaluative technique, and you feel that they've missed something on your child, you have the right to request that the school district pay for an outside evaluation. It tells you that your child has safeguards when it comes to behavior, that they cannot be suspended out of school indefinitely, that there is a 10-day rule. Now, it doesn't mean kids can only be suspended for 10 days. It means that if a child is suspended for 10 consecutive days, or they're getting close to 8 days of out of school suspension, that the school system has to do what's called a manifestation meeting, which you have to determine, was the child's behavior directly related to their disability? Well, the procedural safeguards keep the schools from being able to just continuously suspend kids that are a handful. They can't do that.
Right.
They have got to communicate with you. There are meetings that have to be had. The procedural safeguards also lay out that there are specific people required to attend IEP meetings. It's not just somebody off the street. It's got to be people that know your child,
Right.
plus an administrator, plus the parents. Like, everybody needs to be there. So the procedural safeguards, if you wanted to sit down and read through them, it's going to be a lot of legalese telling you that you don't just have to accept what somebody says. That's kind of like an overall. That's like an umbrella.
Right.
It's like not telling you to be combative, but telling you to be informed as much as you can, ask questions. One thing I do want to make sure I don't forget to say is, for those of you that already have an IEP in place, please ask for a copy of the draft prior to the next IEP meeting. You are entitled to a draft copy of your child's IEP to give you time to go over it and understand it. Maybe ask questions from somebody that you trust if you have questions about that IEP before you go into the meeting, so that when you're in that meeting, you can actually focus and concentrate on what's going on.
Right.
So please ask for a draft copy of the meeting or of the IEP. And you be prepared for them to say, oh, well, we're not allowed to do that. Yeah, they are. They're just not used to it. They're not used to people being educated.
Right.
Okay, right. So.
And then that also would give you time to, like, if there's a goal that you would like to be worked on, it gives you time to communicate that with the teacher. It gives you time to process what's on there, determine if there needs to be any tweaks, because as we said, the parent being in that meeting, from my understanding of the procedural safeguards, the parent is like half of the committee, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Everybody carries equal weight in an IEP meeting, but technically, if every effort has been made to get the parent there, the school system can say that, but I mean, they've got to have proof. So like they don't typically do it without the parent. The thing is, we have to keep in mind that the IEP is for the school system, right? It's not for home.
Right.
However, I encourage families all the time to obviously be very active. And when you can work something between home and school and show that child that you're on the same page and that we're all in this together, you do get a better result.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah.
And a lot of times, I know over Ruby's course of education, a lot of the things that they were working on, obviously, again, she's pretty severe, but they translated into home. Like, they were things that I could also be doing at home with her. And, or there was something at home that I'd really like to see, for instance, when Ruby was in pre-K and she was there for 3 years, I was told by an educator that they didn't have to work on potty training because it wasn't in the IEP. And then I was told later, and it was something I was communicating over and over and over again. And I was told later
Right.
by a future principal that Ruby was going to that next school that wasn't the case at all. So it's
Yeah, there is no potty training requirement to go to school.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's number one. Number two, if a child is struggling with potty training, common sense dictates you work on potty training, whether it's on an IEP or not. But
right.
I get it. I
Yeah,
know, been there. I've seen it all.
yeah. I can imagine that you have, but
Yeah.
it's important too. Obviously you're in those states, those 8 states, but every state has advocates, right? I mean, probably
Oh, yeah.
not, maybe not all of them have the level of experience that you have because you come with a long list of, jobs that you've held, and that's given you what you are today. But um, if someone is explained the procedural safeguards and all of those things and they still don't understand, like there's help for them out there, right?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yes. Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime. There are advocates. That is part of the federal legislation, is that all states have to offer it. And you know what? They might be called a liaison, because that's another term that the federal government uses.
Okay.
So every school district is supposed to have a liaison to help the parents with exactly that, turning, like figuring out the language, if they have questions, but they're supposed to have liaisons.
Okay. And then, like,
Yeah.
for your services, like, what does it cost for you?
Well, Brenda, that's a loaded question. And my family would love for my answer to be different, but I just, in my heart, can't make it different. At this point in time, I'm extremely blessed that I donate all my services to all my families, and I do not charge to assist. I attend meetings in many other states via Zoom. Um, in the state of Florida, if you're not too terribly far, I will drive it. I do a lot through email and phone. I help parents before they go into meetings understand the IEP and the language on it, or if there's an evaluation, if the child is not determined eligible yet, and this is a brand new thing, we go through all the eligibility stuff. We talk about it. We go through each test. I go through all the psychological testing and explain what each area is, because again, I know it, I understand it, so I can tell the parents what does that mean for their child.
Right.
So to answer your question, yes, it's me. I do not charge, because I don't believe that money should ever get in the way of a child getting what they need.
And
It's
that's
that simple.
a beautiful thing. As I had told you earlier when we talked a little bit, that I myself was going through some IEP, navigating and struggling with some stuff, and I had called an advocate, and it was $150 just for them to go over um, what I was missing and all of that stuff, and kind of chunk down her IEP for me, and then it would have been another $300 for me to get that person to come in person with me. Zoom wasn't even offered. It was, and so I definitely encourage any parents that are struggling with this to give you a call, because um,
Yeah,
it's to have it for free. And you're right, like if I needed you tomorrow and you said your fee was $200, I can't do it.
right,
And therefore, if I didn't know what I was doing, I would not be able to advocate for her. And not that there aren't going to be things that I'm going to come across that I don't know what I'm doing, because
right.
we're on this journey, and things change and they evolve. But if I was brand new and I didn't know, what was going on, and I was that parent that was like, yes, explain that to me. And I made her explain it until I understood. And that poor woman was probably like, oh my God, this meeting, cancel all the rest of my meetings for the rest of the day. But if I didn't and I needed to call you and the services are free, that's a beautiful thing. Um, that and the fact that you're in more than one state. You're in my home state. So hey, if anyone is listening from my hometown and you're struggling to navigate, please call her because I won't go into specific details, but I have friends that are facing challenges, and she's confirmed that it's not right, and she can help you get it fixed.
Yep.
It's it's such a tricky thing to navigate. It's so much better if you're in it than not. If you're not there fighting for your child, you can't just assume that the people in the room are gonna. Right? I mean,
Right. And that's the biggest thing is show up. You need to be there. Um, go, if you have the ability, be at your child's school for the social events. I know with my grandkids, it seems like every Friday night there's something. But you know what? We go to a lot of it because I want to see how the kids are interacting. I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's the feel on the campus in general, right?
right,
Um, because that kind of homework is extremely important before you go into an IEP meeting.
right.
It's a community,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, it's just like you need to know that just because your kids on a gen ed campus in a self-contained classroom, they don't get to go on field trips. No, that's ridiculous.
right,
If there's a field trip going for the third grade and your kid's in third grade but in self-contained, then they go on the field trip. Oh yeah, but they need to have a para. Good, send a para. They can't require a parent to go.
right.
They cannot require the parent, and they will say, "Well, your kid can't go unless you go." That is flat against the law.
Oh wow.
That is not legal. However, you will hear that, especially if there are behaviors. And you know what? The truth is, Brenda, for the parents that are really dealing with the substantial behavior kids, they already know, and
Yeah,
they know that if their child is going to behave better with them on the field trip, that's fine. That's fine. They can go. But they shouldn't have to be told unless you go, their child cannot go. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
I mean, that's happened for sure.
Oh, it happens every day. It
Yeah,
happens every day.
and
Yeah.
it's not knowing um not knowing those things, and you're going through it, and I mean, it doesn't feel good when you're told something like that, but not knowing is and and then going through it and doing it's one thing, but
Yeah.
having the knowledge and not going against it, not
Right.
it's kind of like you're just allowing it to happen. And yes, it sometimes is challenging. I'll say that
Yeah.
it's challenging
Yeah.
to be the one that goes into fight, but remembering that you're not just doing it for you and your
Right.
child. You're changing the future of how you know it's kind of like that saying, like, people will do to you what you allow them to do. It
Right.
can be like that in the education system as well. Um,
Oh yeah.
but and I'm sure that you've probably sat in umpteen meetings where that's exactly what they were doing, is because they've always gotten by with it. I
Yes.
think my home state is notorious for just a lot of my friends that are there that are going through these things, and they're not doing the right thing by the child, and kind of sitting back and just letting it and not doing anything. When you have now a tool like Dr. Bowie is an amazing resource, even if she doesn't sit in your meeting with you to walk you through how to
Oh yeah.
navigate that. That's huge. Um,
Yeah.
and it can be
We
scary.
all need yeah, we all need a cheerleader.
Yeah,
We all need somebody on our side.
yeah, yeah. And it can be scary to be the one. You don't want to ruffle any feathers, you don't want to rock the boat, but ultimately, you know um, things have only gotten that bad or that far or gone on that long because no one's rocking the boat. No one's coming
Right.
along and shaking things up. And I've, definitely over the years have, wait a minute, why is that? That's not right. That's not, and I've gotten things fixed, you know, um,
Yeah.
for, my child and then maybe anybody else that comes along and that's in that same scenario. I can't stress it enough that if you're trying to navigate, do you also help families get an IEP?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that's where we're going, if that's what direction, I would be asking a lot of questions of the family prior to pushing a school for that because you have to have a better understanding. But I mean, a lot of times parents will say, my doctor said we should have an IEP. Well, with all due respect, they can deal with the medical piece. Let us deal with the educational piece.
Right, right. Yeah. And that kind of
Okay. So
falls
just,
back to
yeah.
that, they see them in like in this area, but they don't see them academically. So they don't always know
Right.
what the requirements are and all of that stuff. So yeah, that definitely makes
Yep.
sense. Um,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up though. And please, parents, remember you are by far not the only person going through what you're going through. It doesn't matter what it is. You are by far not the only parent trying to walk through this. So whenever you speak up and you're attempting to learn and you have information, and you're working with a school and you might be trying to change their perspective or their understanding or their knowledge base. You're doing that for every kid there, plus every kid that comes after yours.
right.
So it is truly about the greater good. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, so do you have any like other knowledge for them? Any more advice? Any
Be
like,
there for your kids. Don't question. Yeah. The big thing is don't question yourself. As parents, we do question ourselves all the time. They forget to give you that operating manual when they hand you that baby.
yeah,
So you're trying to figure it out from day one. But don't question yourself because you're always going to be acting in the best interest of your own child. And just because somebody else might not see what you see, it doesn't mean you're not seeing it. Just
right,
because they're not experiencing it doesn't mean it's not there. And vice versa. If they're seeing something at school that you're not seeing at home, that is extremely common because when we put the stressors of school on kids, they respond and react differently. Remember, when they're at home, unless it's homework time, they're having fun, they're playing, they're outside, they're
right,
doing whatever, but it's not the same rigor as them being on a school campus.
right.
So remember, just walking through the doors of a school for some kids is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So try to keep an open mind. Try to listen well, but also communicate well and speak very basically to everybody that is in a meeting with you like they know nothing about you or your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the assumption that, well, they've had an IEP for 5 years, they know. No, nope, doesn't mean that at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's your job as the parent to let them know about your child.
Right,
Because I guarantee you, you're going to share something. They're going to go, "Oh my God, I didn't know they could do that.
right,
I'm going to try that in class." But you know what? The teacher's going to say, "Did you know that they can do A, B, C?" And you're going to go, "No," because when we sit down for homework, they act like a fool. And you're
right,
like, "Yeah, well, guess what? They do know how to do it." So don't question yourselves as parents in what you're doing, but at the same time, try to keep the communication as open as possible so that your child's needs can be met in a very healthful, beneficial way.
right, right. And like to your comment about like if they're not seeing it and you still see it, follow your gut. Um,
Yep.
you're right. These kids don't come, no kid comes with a manual, and these kids definitely don't come with a manual, and it's very confusing and it's a very, but one thing I always look back on, I've always made every decision for her from my gut. I
Yep.
I have toured centers and I met the owner and I loved it. And then I got in there and I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so I'm not going to go
There you
this
go.
route. Some of the therapies, we talked a little bit about that earlier today. The one therapist was coming to the house, and the things that they were trying to correct in her, it just didn't sit right in my gut. So we didn't continue on with that.
Right.
And that's literally sometimes all that you have is your gut feeling.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if
Very true.
something is in your gut that something is going on with your child, and I think so, I have a friend that their child was very high functioning, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about certain diagnoses that if they have too much of this then they can't be, or this or that.
Right.
And
Right.
I remember telling them, like, you are the person that is going to get this fixed. You have got to keep pushing. You have got to keep advocating, because you know it in your heart. You've said it. Other people are seeing it and they're saying it, and don't give up. And it's the same way
Yeah.
with this process. If you see it and you feel it in your gut, sometimes it may take a while, but you have to keep advocating and keep pushing, because sometimes you're the only one that's gonna
That's right.
and you are their voice sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of them don't talk. I have been happily Ruby's voice for 14 years.
Yeah.
And even when they do talk, they're not always heard.
Yeah.
And so you have got to be the one, and following your gut is the first huge step. When your gut tells you something's off, you've got to
Yep.
you've got to
Listen
be
to
the
it.
one to pursue it and listen to it. And if they so need, extra accommodations, an IEP could be something that they qualify for. And
Yeah.
not every district and not every school is going to be like, I don't even know if there's any real schools that are going to be like, yes, here's this document. It's so easy to get. It's not easy.
Right.
Um,
No.
and if you need, an advocate to help you, and Dr. Bowie's not in the state in the comments, I'll list the states that she is available in, and her phone number.
Brenda, it's every state. I just happen to be in 8, but I can hit any state because I follow federal law.
Okay.
I learn about each state as somebody has an issue there. So every state is on the table.
Oh, there you go. So no matter where you
Yeah.
are in the United States, Dr. Bowie can help you out. And I will list her phone number in her contact information, her email and stuff in the comments. So if that's a service that you need, definitely feel free to reach out. She's very knowledgeable, and I wish I had known about you way back in the day. Probably would have saved me some grief. So if you're a brand new
Yeah.
family, like just starting on this journey, and you have this resource, you're lucky. Very lucky. But obviously, if I need you in the future, I'll be giving you a call.
Absolutely. I'm right here for you.
All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Nope, I think that's good. Maybe we'll do a follow-up in a while.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Absolutely. And if as always, if you guys have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. Um, and that's it. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowie, for joining me. I feel like this is going to be a really impactful one. I hope it helps lots of families navigate this tricky system. And
Yeah.
thank you.
Well,
Thank you for
thank you.
everything that you do for these
Thank you.
families.
Yeah.
And for free.
Well, you are more than welcome, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and look forward to hearing from some of your folks.
All righty. See y'all or talk to you guys later.
All right. Bye-bye.